I woke up to the cold bite of steel. My husband, Mark, had handcuffed my wrist to his. Panic set in instantly, but he didn't flinch. He just stared right through me with a dead, hollow expression. Before I could even process what was happening, he whispered,
"It's time to wake up."
"Hi, I'm Emma, the wife of Mark Webster, a highly successful and wealthy lawyer. To the outside world, Mark loved me more than anyone could ever imagine. But behind closed doors, I felt trapped. To cope with my suffocating marriage, I made a terrible mistake. I started an affair with his close friend and coworker, Tom. Deep down, I knew it was wrong. Consumed with guilt and wanting to fix my marriage, I decided to break things off with Tom once and for all. Just before Mark and I's anniversary, I met Tom for a brief, meaningless goodbye. I told him straight up,
"It's over."
After leaving Tom, I stopped by Mark's office. He wasn't at his desk, but my eyes landed on an open file that made my blood run cold. It was a photo of the man who had broken into my house 10 years ago, the same man I had permanently scarred in self-defense. Mark was the lawyer who got me through that case. Seeing that file sitting right there on his desk sent a shiver down my spine. Suddenly, Mark knocked on the door. One look at his silent, unreadable expression, and my anxiety skyrocketed. He had a deeply controlling, almost toxic grip on my life, and in that moment, I felt like he knew everything about my betrayal. But later that evening, for our anniversary, Mark acted perfectly normal. We drove to a high-end restaurant where he gifted me a strange, heavy steel necklace. It was odd, his first real gift in a decade, but I accepted it, trying to play along. The surprises didn't end there. Mark told me he had one more destination in mind and blindfolded me, claiming he didn't want to ruin the surprise. Eager to fix our bond, I happily agreed. After a 2-hour drive, he finally removed the blindfold. We were at our secluded lake house. I was stunned. We only ever used this place in the summer, never in the dead of winter. It felt completely out of place, but the house was beautifully decorated, warm, and inviting. Romantic music drifted through the air. He had even laid out a collection of photos spanning our 10-year relationship. Mark held me and confessed that he knew things had been rocky lately, but he was committed to fixing us. Overcome with guilt, I fell for it, and we shared a deeply intimate evening. The next morning, the illusion shattered. I woke up securely chained to him. Expecting a morning embrace, I looked over, only to be met with his dead serious face. He uttered the words,
"It's time to wake up."
I was deafened by the gunshot. My lungs forgot how to breathe. Covered in blood and pure shock, I scrambled to call for help, only to discover that Mark had severed every single phone line and connection to the outside world. We were a 2-hour drive from civilization. Desperate, I grabbed his gun to shoot the handcuffs chain off, but there was only one bullet, and he had just used it. I was forced to physically drag Mark's dead weight across the floor to the closet. I managed to pull on my old wedding dress to cover the blood, but there was absolutely nothing in the room strong enough to break the steel cuffs. Thinking quickly, I remembered the storage room downstairs. Surely there would be sharp tools there. Groaning under the immense weight, I dragged his body down the stairs, only to find the toolboxes completely empty. It dawned on me. Mark had methodically planned this sick revenge. By some miracle, I spotted the car keys in the kitchen. I hauled his body out to the garage, threw us both into the car, and turned the key. Nothing. That twisted mastermind had siphoned every last drop of gas from the tank. Suddenly, the crackle of static broke the silence. A cranky, pre-recorded message from Mark began playing on the radio. It was a honkingly calm goodbye bid, a taunting voice from beyond the grave.
He knew everything about my affair with Tom. He had meticulously designed this entire murder theater, and now I was the star attraction, trapped in his horrific script. I dragged us to the bathroom, washed the blood off my face, and desperately tried to pry the strange steel necklace off, but it wouldn't budge. Nothing was working. Looking for anything that could help, I stumbled into Mark's dark room. What I found made my stomach drop. There were surveillance photos of Tom and me. But that wasn't what truly terrified me. Pinned to the wall were disturbing recent photographs of Bobby, the man who had attacked me 10 years ago. A chill shot straight to my bones. Then, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Just before his death, Mark had texted Tom, luring him to the lake house under the guise of needing help. Mark's office had been raided by the DA the night before. Facing multiple criminal charges, Mark had chosen a coward's way out, taking his own life while ensuring he dragged me down into his personalized hell. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. It was Tom. He walked in, took one look at the bloodbath, and instantly connected the dots of Mark's deranged plan. He was absolutely petrified. As Tom and I frantically discussed calling the cops, headlights flashed through the window. Another car was approaching. A man named Jimmy stepped out, claiming Mark had hired him to fix some broken pipes. Tom tried to hand him cash and tell him to leave, but then the passenger door opened. It was Bobby. My voice caught in my throat. Before Tom could even react, Bobby drove a knife straight into Tom's stomach, kicking his way into the house. Jimmy, clearly Bobby's younger brother, freaked out at the sight of the blood, but Bobby coldly assured him everything was going to be fine. In the chaos, I managed to slip away, dragging Mark's body behind me, but I was leaving a fresh trail of blood. I knew I had to separate myself from Mark's dead weight immediately if I had any hope of surviving. I snuck into the tool shed, my eyes scanning the darkness until they landed on a heavy, rusted anchor. With no other choice, I lifted it high, ready to sever Mark's hand. Jimmy, following the gruesome trail of blood, stumbled upon Mark's severed hand in the shed. Terrified, he frantically called out for his brother. Meanwhile, I had crawled under the winterized boat, holding my breath as I listened to them. The twisted truth finally spilt out. Mark had hired Bobby to kill me, and his payment locked safely inside the master bedroom safe. Once they left the shed, I racked my freezing bare feet in the torn fabric of my wedding dress. I managed to find a heavy gas can hidden in the boat. Desperate to escape, I dragged it toward the garage, but Bobby heard the scrape. As he approached, I ducked into the shadows, watching helplessly as he took a knife and punctured the car's tires. By some miracle, I slipped away unseen. I made a run for the basement, but my bare footprints in the fresh snow gave me away. Bobby was right on my tail. My heart pounded against my ribs. I was trapped. Outside the basement door, Jimmy was dragging Mark's heavy, one-handed corpse. Inside, Bobby was practically breathing down my neck. Suddenly, an idea struck me. I still had the car keys. I slammed the panic button. The alarm blared through the silent, snowy landscape, sending both brothers sprinting toward the garage. The chaos was getting to Jimmy. He told Bobby he was done, that they needed to leave immediately. But Bobby wasn't leaving without his prize. Pressed by his brother, Bobby finally revealed the stakes. Mark had promised him $200,000. The mention of that kind of money changed Jimmy's mind. Greed instantly took over. Listening from the shadows, I heard Bobby justify his rage. He blamed me for destroying his life 10 years ago, sending him to prison, the stress killing his father, and their family home being repossessed. To him, this wasn't just a hit. This was personal revenge. They moved back inside the house. Jimmy quickly noticed I'd swapped my bare feet for Tom's heavy boots. Following the muddy tracks leading straight up to the attic, Bobby drew his weapon and headed up the stairs. The moment he crested the landing, I swung with everything I had. Bobby tumbled backward, crashing down to the first floor. Running on pure adrenaline, I smashed Jimmy in the face on my way out and sprinted for Tom's car. I locked the doors, but Bobby was relentless. He shattered the driver's side window, dragged me out by my hair, and delivered a brutal punch to my face. Everything went black. When I came to, the nightmare had reset. I was face to face with Mark's dead eyes again. Bobby had handcuffed me back to Mark's remaining wrist. He stood over me, threatening to torture me until I gave up the safe combination. Jimmy, realizing how unhinged his brother had become, tried to intervene, but Bobby shoved him violently to the floor. Scrambling backward, Jimmy's hand found the empty revolver I had dropped earlier. He aimed it directly at his brother, his voice trembling as he pleaded for the violence to stop. Using their distraction, I made a deal. I promised them the code, but only if they broke my handcuffs. I told them the numbers, the exact date Mark had proposed to me. Bobby punched in the code. The heavy steel door clicked open. But there was no cash, just a single piece of paper with a final taunting message from Mark. The diamonds you seek lay close to her heart. Bobby's eyes slowly darted down to the heavy steel necklace Mark had locked around my throat at dinner. Realizing the only way to get it off was to sever my head, Bobby's expression turned murderous. Jimmy panicked, frantically trying to find a way to cut the steel chain, but Bobby calmly walked over and grabbed a motorized jigsaw. He tried to shoot me first, forgetting the revolver was empty. Frustrated, he threw the gun aside, pinned me to the floor, and brought the blade inches from my neck. Jimmy lunged to save me, but Bobby, fueled by blind rage, shoved his own brother backward. Jimmy stumbled, his head slamming brutally into a row of heavy wall-mounted coat hooks. He was dead instantly. Losing his mind, Bobby drove a knife straight into my leg. Screaming in agony, I blindly grabbed a heavy pair of bolt cutters and smashed them into his face. In the split second he was stunned, I managed to snap my empty handcuff onto Bobby's wrist. Now he was chained to Mark's corpse. I hobbled toward the SUV, threw it into gear, and slammed the gas. He dragged Mark's body behind him and charged. I tried to hit him with the car, but the tires spun on the ice, and I crashed into a snowbank. I crawled out, but Bobby was right behind me, the heavy corpse sliding through the snow. The chase led us right onto the frozen surface of the lake. Suddenly, the ice groaned, spiderwebbed, and shattered. We plunged into the black, freezing water. Bobby, weighed down by Mark's dead weight, began to sink, but his grip locked onto my leg like a vice. He was going to drag me down to a watery grave with them. My lungs burned. The freezing water numbed my limbs. In a final, desperate act of survival, I pulled the knife he had stabbed into my leg and drove it directly into his remaining good eye. He let go. I kicked frantically toward the faint light above, bursting through the surface of the ice and gasping for air. Crawling onto the solid, freezing shore, my trembling hands reached for my wedding ring. I slowly pulled it off and tossed it into the dark water, watching it sink down into the abyss with Mark. The heavy, abusive chains of my toxic marriage were finally at the bottom of the lake. As the distant wail of police sirens pierced the silent, snowy morning, I looked back at the shattered ice one last time. Mark thought he had written my final chapter. He thought his manipulative games and dark psychology would end with my death, but he forgot one crucial detail. A woman pushed to her absolute limit is the most dangerous creature on Earth. I was no longer a victim. I was the lone survivor of a masterpiece of madness. And for the first time in 10 years, I was finally free.